Alright, The White Lotus is an excellent study in storytelling, character dynamics, and in tension building specifically.
You're in big trouble.
I know.
Which are all three great things to have in any Dungeons & Dragons campaign. I'm Dad the Dungeon Master, I've been a DM for over a decade, and I'm a published author. So let's dig into exactly how The White Lotus can help you be a better Dungeon Master. One word of warning, there will be some light spoilers for seasons 1 and 2 of The White Lotus. You have been warned. The first lesson you should take away from The White Lotus is they craft multi-layered characters. The White Lotus excels at creating characters with hidden depths, flaws, and conflicting motivations. Tanya is the perfect example of this. She seems naive at first, but she has hidden layers of entitlement, desperation, and self-delusionment.
And I am deeply insecure.
And she evolves, or better yet, unravels over the course of the first 2 seasons. The way that you can use this to better your game is develop NPCs who are more than just quest givers. Make them have their own agenda, their own flaws, and maybe even conflicting feelings about events. An example would be a noble who sends the party to hunt a ravenous beast, but he's actually using the party to cover up a crime that he committed. The number 2 lesson from The White Lotus, and this is probably the thing that they do best, is mastering slow burn tension and foreshadowing.
No way.
No, I swear.
Tension is the engine for all storytelling. If you want readers or players or viewers to be engaged with your story, make sure there is tension. And you can't hold on to the same source of tension throughout an entire story. You have to create, ratchet up, evolve, and generate tension throughout your story, gradually dropping hints that lead to an explosive payoff. A great example of this from The White Lotus is that in season 2, they repeatedly reference Sicilian tragedies and operas, which is foreshadowing for multiple betrayals and deaths. There are many different ways that you can sprinkle in foreshadowing that builds tension. A lot of Dungeon Masters think that the surprise is the most fun thing, but here's the thing about a surprise. It's really fun in that one moment. If you sprinkle in hints and foreshadowing and build the tension, they can have that excitement, that positive anxiety building up over several sessions. So you get a lot more mileage out of it. They see it coming and they're afraid of it. They have this building tension. So it will be just as big, maybe even bigger, because they've had this fuel all being added to the fire as these hints and these foreshadowing moments have happened. An example you could use in a game would be having towns that your party passes through have rumors and mention things about a carnival that came through, and every time that the carnival went by, things just got weird in the town for a little while. So you're building up the mystique and mystery around this carnival so that when your party finally gets there and the ringleader is some sort of horrifying monstrosity, it's cool. And they had this tension building up, so the moments leading up to going to the carnival are just as exciting as the moment that the ringleader's true nature is revealed. The third lesson you can take away from The White Lotus is making it feel like a lived-in world. Their staff going through their everyday routines, even though there is an underlying tension,
Welcome to the White Lotus.
makes it feel like it's a real place. An example from the show would be like Arnold. He's not just a staff member during season 1. He actually has his own character arc that intertwines with the main characters of the show. A great way to do this in your own game is to have characters, NPCs, remember things that the party did, and that shaped the way they feel about the party in the future. Like, for instance, if last time you were in town, your party started a big brawl in a tavern, the bartender will probably remember them and treat them differently because of that action. You want your party to feel like the things they do affect the world. That makes it feel like the world is going on even when they're not around. The number 4 lesson to take away from The White Lotus, and this is something that I see overlooked a lot in Dungeons & Dragons, is the social tension and the power politics between players and NPCs. The show, as part of building tension, thrives on these power struggles and these social dynamics, whether it be rich versus poor, men versus women, locals versus tourists. All these social dynamics add to the tension in the show. A great example of this from the show is the season 2 social dynamics between Ethan, Daphne, Harper, and Cameron. It's this slow burn battle of ego, seduction, and psychological warfare.
And then he kissed me.
So to integrate this into a D&D campaign, design conflicts that aren't just battle, but that involve manipulation and negotiation. An example would be maybe a noble has sent you to slay the guards of another noble to get back at him for an insult. But when you arrive, this second noble has a counteroffer that is actually better for the party. So does your party go back on the deal they already made, which would not necessarily be right, or do they accept this better offer that would help them more and perhaps be better in the long run? Those conflicting social dynamics and those plays for power can really add to the depth of your D&D campaign. The fifth lesson to take away from the White Lotus is the idea of moral ambiguity and uncertain narratives. And this in particular is a nice, sweet spice to add to any story. It is always going to make things better. Very few characters in the White Lotus are purely good and evil. Nobody on Earth is purely good and evil, so no characters should be purely good or evil. That makes characters way more believable and way easier to engage with than just the noble knight who's always noble or the evil villain just sitting there twisting his mustache. A great example of this would be from season 1. Nicole seems like this feminist CEO, but if you pay attention to the way she treats low-class workers, it shows cracks in her belief in her ideals.
But honestly fine.
A great way to integrate this into your D&D campaign is to make your villain sort of like Thanos. He truly believes he's doing the right thing, even though he's obviously doing evil from the party's perspective. It adds depth and realness to your villain characters. The sixth lesson I learned from watching The White Lotus is how they use thematic cohesion. Each of the first 2 seasons have ideals, and every character involved in those seasons are some version of making examples of those ideals. With season 1, it's privilege and guilt. With season 2, it's desire and infidelity. The season 2 themes of sexual politics, power, and deception play out in almost every single relationship, and this helps to reinforce the core theme of the story. So you want to have a theme for your D&D campaign and create storylines that reinforce that theme. For instance, if your theme is that power corrupts, you can show not just powerful NPCs, but commoners and maybe even the party get put in situations where they struggle with power potentially corrupting their pure intentions. The seventh, final, and possibly most important lesson to learn from the White Lotus that can help you run more immersive D&D campaigns is to have unpredictable but yet inevitable endings. The endings for characters in season 1 and 2 of The White Lotus are unexpected, but at the same time are completely grounded in the character's own choices. For example, Tanya's fate in season 2 is tragic, but it is perfectly foreshadowed by her own character's flaws.
These gays, they're trying to murder me.
So you should make your character's choices influence the final outcome for their storylines. For example, if your party had to choose to go on a separate mission instead of saving a village from a local warlord, maybe later on down the line, that warlord is now a nation or empire-wide threat. This adds to the verisimilitude and makes your players really feel like they are influencing the world that they're in. So to sum it up, make your D&D campaign like a slow burn mystery. This will be an extremely satisfying structure. The White Lotus thrives on character conflict, power struggles, and slow building tension, and great D&D campaigns do the same thing. You can use these techniques to make your world feel richer, the NPCs more compelling, and keep your players more engaged. If you've made it this far, throw me a like. If you want to keep up with other Dungeon Master tips, lessons I've learned from other shows, campaign walkthroughs, feel free to subscribe. Check out memberships on my channel, check out my shop. Here's some other videos I've done you guys might like. Thanks guys, and God bless you.